On Global TV News Prime, Nigerian Safety Investigation Bureau confirms that 21 passengers sustained injuries and no life was lost in Abuja-Kaduna train derailment. In business, President Bola Tinubu orders Bank of Agriculture to clear 30 billion naira debt owed to agro dealers. And on the foreign scene, President Lazarus Chakwera conceded defeat in last week's Malawi election, clears way for opposition candidate. And in sports, Nigerian delegation arrives in London for the country's presentation to host Commonwealth Games in 2030. Hello and welcome to all our viewers in Nigeria and around the world to News Prime on Global Television, coming to you live from the nation's capital, Abuja. I am Jumai Manson. Now, a quick reminder that Global Television is on DSTV channel 365 and Star Times channel 276. Now the news in full. The Nigerian Safety Investigation Bureau has published its preliminary findings on the Abuja-Kaduna trail derailment that occurred on August 26, 2025 at Asham Station, confirming that 21 passengers sustained injuries but no lives were lost. The train, a locomotive with registration CDD5C22701, had departed Edu Station in Abuja at 9:45 a.m. en route to Rigasa, Kaduna, carrying 618 people, including Nigerian Railway Corporation crew, security personnel, and service staff. The agency confirmed that initial findings and recommendations have been published in its preliminary report, which is now available for download on the NSIB website. First Lady Oluremi Tinubu says her 65th birthday fundraiser for the long-delayed National Library project has so far generated 20.4 billion naira. Speaking at the State House Conference Center, Abuja, Tinubu dismissed suggestions that the initiative tagged Oluremi at 65 Education Fund was politically motivated, describing it as a love project born of her passion for education. Sadia Yakubu has details.
First Lady Oluremi Tinubu said this fund, supervised by the Federal Ministry of Education and the Chief Librarian of the Federation, will remain open until December 2025 to accommodate more donations. The First Lady explained that the contributions would help revive the styled 12-story library complex in Abuja, which has suffered decades of delays since its approval in 1981 and is currently only 40% complete.
That is why if we take our baby steps in well-doing, before long things will begin to shape up for our beloved nation. We all have to rise up, play our part in the building process. A grain of sand and a little drop of water makes a mighty ocean.
The First Lady recalled her past philanthropic efforts, including raising 50 million for the National Sickle Cell Foundation, 200 million for the New Era Foundation, and building schools in Liberia. She, however, expressed confidence that the project, considered national treasure, will be finished within 2 years.
What is wrong in doing well or trying to build a society? If I could assist the post-war building process in Liberia, by donating the Oluremi Tinubu Elementary and Junior Secondary School in Montserrado County in Liberia, what is wrong in drawing attention to some of the areas of need in our beloved nation?
Oluremi Tinubu acknowledged support from the President, the Vice President, former leaders, former First Ladies, National Assembly members, state governors and their spouses, business moguls, and members of the public.
The head of service, Jumai Bako, has commended Governor Uba Sani for supporting and strengthening Kaduna State civil service through training and capacity building since he resumed office. Bako enjoined civil servants to be dedicated to their job by maintaining good work ethics, given the training that they have been receiving since the present administration came on board. The head of service made these remarks after inspecting computer-based test centers where civil servants who are seeking confirmation of appointments are undergoing examinations after the statutory 2-year probationary period. Chief Judge of the Federal Capital Territory, Justice Hussaini Baba Yusuf, has discharged no fewer than 35 inmates awaiting trial across the 2 custodial centers in the Kefi local government area of Nasarawa State. The statement by the Chief Judge of the Federal Territory, Baba Yusuf, says they discharged inmates during a visit to the medium security custodial center in Kefi. Now, the intervention facilitated by the Public and Private Development Center, a non-governmental organization, saw to the release of the 35 inmates, who included 33 males and 2 females. Chairperson of Bauchi State Independent Electoral Commission, Jumai Abubakar, has urged residents of the state to take advantage of the ongoing permanent voter cards registration exercise to enable them to participate fully in the forthcoming elections. Abubakar gave the charge during the sensitization visit to Das local government area of the state. She explained that the essence of the exercise was to create awareness among the electorate that voter registration is currently ongoing nationwide. Over now to the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission has been asked to release an interim report on the investigation into the alleged $4 billion fraud linked to the failed rehabilitation of Nigeria's Port Harcourt, Warri and Kaduna refineries. Anti-corruption crusaders under the aegis of Concerned Nigerians for Transparency and Justice made a demand in a statement. A probe was reportedly launched into the inconclusive rehabilitation projects about 6 months ago, but the outcome of the investigation is yet to be disclosed. You are watching the live broadcast of News Prime. When News Prime returns, National Sports Commission leadership reaffirms inclusion of 14 constituencies in all sports federations board. Details coming shortly, plus business and sports stories on the other side of this break. Please stay with us. You're welcome back, and if you're just tuning in, this is News Prime on Global Television. Thank you for staying with us. In business now, the Federal Inland Revenue Service says government borrowing will continue as part of Nigeria's long-term economic strategy. The executive chairman of the Federal Inland Revenue Service, George Adedeji, made this known while addressing State House correspondents in Abuja that borrowing should not be seen as a weakness, but as an integral part of the country's fiscal plan. Uyi Agbomofuegbe tells us more.
The executive chairman of the Federal Inland Revenue Service, Zach Adedeji, explained that every national budget is built on a mix of revenue, expenditure, and borrowing. According to him, loans are not used for salaries, but for investments that will serve future generations, such as infrastructure projects. Adedeji insisted that borrowing remains essential to balance revenue gains with long-term national development goals.
By that time, we will have harmonized all the taxes, reduction in corporate tax rates, budget and spending reforms. Mr. President just finished meeting now with National Assembly to make sure that now that the fundamental is set, how do we have or continue to have the budget that works for all Nigeria?
The FIRS boss explained that federal revenue collection rose sharply to 3.64 trillion naira in September 2025, a 411% increase from 711 billion naira recorded in May 2023. He noted that the jump was largely driven by higher non-oil income, streamlined tax reforms, and improved compliance.
The total accretion to Federation as at May 2023 is 711 billion. That is what we made. As of September, which is last month, you will see the total accretion is 3.6 trillion. That is increase of 411%, which is just as a result of the economic reform decision that Mr. President has taken. And then when
Adedeji maintained that with reforms already boosting collections, borrowing will continue to complement revenue growth, a move he says is necessary to secure Nigeria's long-term economic stability. Uyi Agbomofuegbe, reporting for Global TV News.
President Bola Tinubu has directed the Bank of Agriculture to clear outstanding arrears of 30 billion naira owed to the agro dealers and input suppliers under the National Agricultural Growth Scheme in Agro Pocket. According to a statement issued by the bank's external media relations led by Judith Ekwembelem, says the directive followed the release of funds from the African Development Bank. The bank explained that the move was aimed at strengthening support for farmers and stabilizing the country's food supply chain. Now, the federal government has also designated BOA as a custodian of all agricultural financing program funds. The House of Representatives says it will ensure transparency and accountability in the federal government's Naira for crude oil policy. Speaker of the House, Tajuddin Abbas, made the pledge at the inauguration of an ad hoc committee to oversee the policy's implementation. National Assembly correspondent Anete Patrick reports.
The Speaker, who was represented by the Minority Leader Kingsley Chinda, explained that the initiative has far-reaching implications for foreign exchange stability, revenue generation and long-term energy security.
The Naira for crude oil policy carries significant implications for Nigerians' foreign exchange stability, revenue generation and long-term energy security. A thorough examination of its framework will enable the committee to determine whether the policy is achieving its intended objectives, identify any gaps in its implementation, and highlight areas where adjustments may be required.
Chairman of the ad hoc committee, Boniface Emaregwa, says the policy seeks to create a framework where crude oil transactions are increasingly denominated in Naira. If well structured, it will boost confidence in Nigeria's currency and stimulate domestic growth.
Nigeria is blessed with abundant crude oil reserves, yet the benefit of this God-given resource have not always translated into maximum value for our people. The volatility of the foreign exchange markets, over-dependence on the dollar.
The committee has been tasked to review the policy's framework, engage stakeholders, and make evidence-based recommendations to guide the House.
A key area of interest to DAPMAN while you're doing your work is the cost build-up, the actual costs at which refineries receive the crude oil that is being sold in the country, because this is a key factor in what the man at the pump gets the price of the fuel that he's buying.
The House says the move aligns with President Tinubu's renewed hope agenda and reflects its commitment to transparency, economic stability, and national development. Anete Patrick, reporting for Global TV.
Over the years, tricycle operations in Kano State have replaced the popular taxi, effectively creating jobs and feeding thousands of youths across the state. In this report, Global TV correspondent Idris Tribune takes a look at the tricycle business in Kano's transportation sector.
An estimated 60,000 tricycles operate within Kano metropolis on a daily basis, effectively creating jobs to over 100,000 youth in the state. Although some criminal activities are committed using tricycle, but residents in Kano believes that it is the easiest and fastest means of transportation in Kano.
Tricycle is very important because it helps our children to become gainful, employed rather than involved in criminal activities.
Anas Ahmad has been riding for over 15 years, during which he was able to build a house and have a family. Anas and several other riders are now the great beneficiaries of tricycle operations in Kano.
Tricycle is helping a lot. I am helping my parents and others several under me. I have worked under several people, but today I own my own tricycle.
But there are problems. Some see this means of transportation as a means of committing crimes and addition to traffic-related offenses.
It is true, several crimes like phone snatching are committed using tricycle. Sometimes you will enter tricycle with bad people who are dangerous and may collect your belongings.
Be that as it may, tricycle operations in Kano seems to have come to stay, especially now that there is no any other means of transportation better than Keke Napep in Kano. From Kano, Idris Jubrin reporting for Global Television News.
Over now to our foreign scene now. In Malawi, President Lazarus Chakwera has conceded defeat in last week's election, clearing the way for opposition candidate Peter Mutharika to return to power. And the announcement came even before the Electoral Commission released final results. Over now to Mukhtar Kasim's report.
Chakwera, who first came to office in 2020 after defeating Mutharika, acknowledged in a national address that his rival had built what he called an insurmountable lead. The 70-year-old leader from Malawi Congress Party faced mounting criticism over the economy, with soaring inflation, rising food and fertilizer prices, and accusations of mismanagement dominating the campaign.
Fellow Malawians, 2 nights ago, the Malawi Electoral Commission announced the validated results of the presidential election from 11 councils, bringing their total to 24, with only the results of 12 councils remaining. From those official results, it was clear that my main rival, His Excellency Professor Arthur Peter Mutharika of the Democratic Progressive Party, had already secured an insurmountable lead and is the presumptive winner of the presidential election.
The president's 5th year in office was marked by economic turbulence in the largely rural, agricultural-dependent nation. Analysts say voters' frustration over the cost of living and job creation fueled Mutharika's comeback. Now, as Malawians await the official declaration of the results, Chakwera's concession has set the stage for a smooth handover and a new chapter in the country's democratic journey. Mukhtar Kasim, reporting for Global Television News.
Nigeria's Ministry of Foreign Affairs says sustaining its mission across the world comes at a high price, a reality the government must constantly contend with in order to keep the nation's diplomatic ties alive. Global TV Foreign Affairs correspondent Ramsey Enoch Agbo, who had an exclusive interview with the spokesperson of the ministry, has the rest of the story.
Speaking at the ministry's headquarters in Abuja, the spokesperson Kimebi Imomotimi Ibiefa explained that running the ministry is capital intensive, with much of the funding going into essential needs like accommodation and office spaces for Nigerian embassies abroad.
Maintaining the missions abroad is capital expensive in the sense that, one, you have to have accommodation for the embassy. Accommodation to the 2 key areas is, one, you must have accommodation for the office of the embassy. That is called the chancery. So you must have the embassy building, the chancery. Then you must have accommodation for the ambassador. So, and all these 2 accommodations have to be in prime areas in the capital.
He noted that despite the challenges, Nigerians in many countries are distinguished for their hard work and enterprise, often pursuing advanced educational qualifications that not only benefit them personally, but also contribute to the development of their host nations.
Give the Nigerian 6 months or 1 year. The Nigerian will go to school if it means taking online courses to improve himself. So instead of doing the physical labor in the construction site, before you know what is happening, he has transformed or translated to become a supervisor or a manager. So he will no longer be doing the physical work, but gradually it transited from being a supplier of labor to now becoming a management staff.
The spokesperson stressed that while financial demands remain a hurdle, the ministry continues to play a vital role in strengthening Nigeria's diplomatic relations worldwide. Ramsey Enoch Agbo reporting for Global Television News.
Super Typhoon Ragasa has killed at least 14 people in Taiwan after a lake burst before lashing Hong Kong and Macau with fens, woods, floods and storm surge. Mukhtar Kasim reports.
In Taiwan's Hualien County, a decade-old lake barrier gave way, leaving 14 people dead and 18 injured. The storm also killed 2 people in the Philippines. Hong Kong saw widespread flooding, with surging water smashing through a luxury hotel and sweeping into residential estates. Strong winds toppled trees, damaged footbridges, and shook high-rise buildings. More than 760 residents took refuge in emergency shelters, while hundreds of flights were cancelled at the city's airport. In Macau, electricity was cut off in some low-lying neighborhoods. Authorities shut schools and businesses in at least 10 cities, leaving streets deserted and rail services suspended. With millions now bracing for impact, Super Typhoon Rogasa has left a trail of destruction across the Philippines, Taiwan, Hong Kong, and Macau. Mukhtar Kasim, reporting for Global Television News.
In sports text now, a high-powered Nigerian delegation has arrived in London, United Kingdom, for the final phase of the country's presentation to host the centenary edition of the Commonwealth Games in 2030. Now, the delegation is led by the chairman of the National Sports Commission, Shehu Dikko, and Director General Bukola Olakbade, as the team gets set to make a strong case for Nigeria's historic bid, which would see the game come to Africa for the first time. Still on sports, the leadership of the National Sports Commission has restated its firm commitment to ensuring that 14 recognized constituencies are fully represented on the boards of all sports federations in Nigeria. This assurance follows consultation with key stakeholders ahead of the forthcoming National Sports Federation election. The Commission emphasized that the democratic structure of sports administration in Nigeria is anchored in inclusivity, fairness, and transparency, and therefore no constituency will be disenfranchised in the composition of federation boards. As Global TV News Prime comes to an end, let's take a quick look at our top stories again. We brought to you that the Nigerian Safety Investigation Bureau has published its preliminary findings on the Abuja-Kaduna train derailment that occurred on August 26, 2025 at Asham Station, confirming that 21 passengers sustained injuries but no lives were lost. In business, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has directed the Bank of Agriculture to clear outstanding arrears of 30 billion naira owed to agro dealers and input suppliers under the National Agricultural Growth Scheme and Agro Pocket. And on the foreign scene in Malawi, President Lazarus Chakwera has conceded defeat in last week's election, clearing the way for opposition candidate Peter Mutharika to return to power. And finally, in sports, a high-powered Nigerian delegation has arrived in London, United Kingdom, for the final phase of the country's presentation to host the centenary edition of the Commonwealth Games in 2030. That's it on News Prime. A quick reminder that Global TV is on DSTV channel 365 and Star Times channel 276. Kindly follow us across all social media platforms now showing on your screen by using @GlobalTVNG. I am Jumai Manson. Thank you for watching.